And welcome everyone, migrating from MPLS to SD-WAN, the March MegaPath webinar. Michael Farthing, Senior Sales Engineer here to go over today's topic. So as you have questions about any of the items we're talking about today, please go ahead and put it into the chat window. Up near the top, you should have a spot for chat. And then at the end of the session, I'll come back and we'll go through all of that Q&A. So some exciting content today. And again, if you've got any friends that missed out on this content or business partners, please refer them to the MegaPath Partner Catalog, and you'll be able to watch this and all the rest of our webinars that we've recorded. So here we go. So first off, SD-WAN, software-defined wide area networking, and how does that compare with what's been happening for solutions? So as many of you are aware, customers have either been doing it themselves for connecting multiple sites together, or many organizations have MPLS. And what folks have found is that those traditional networks are expensive, oftentimes slow, cumbersome to do moves, adds, and changes, and basically they cannot keep up with the high demands that the world needs now, especially as all the traffic is moving to the cloud. So instead of having all these small circuits that are expensive, hard to make changes to, organizations are wanting to move to high bandwidth circuits. Oftentimes that's the commodity broadband, like cable, Fios, UVerse, DSL, and such. And they need this because their traffic is doubling every 3 years or even faster. So for some organizations, if they want to, say, add video, they need a whole lot of bandwidth very, very quick. And as organizations are moving their traffic away from being housed in servers that are on-site and out to the cloud, the dynamics of how the network is all laid out are changing. And let's actually talk about that. What do you do if today you've got your servers in-house, inside the organization, and you plan on moving them to Azure or AWS or Google? Well, certainly you have to make sure that you have great secure connectivity to all of those locations, or I should say from the cloud to all of your branch locations. And you want to make sure that you have redundancy for that. If your business relies on the applications to perform properly, you really cannot be single-threaded when you're thinking of whether these are people working from home or branch locations or even the headquarters where you used to have the servers. And maybe a benefit, and what I've experienced, is that now you don't necessarily need quite as big of a pipe at headquarters. If your servers aren't there, you only need to handle the user traffic for headquarters rather than the entire organization's users, because that traffic is no longer going through headquarters. And it's also a good idea to have backup instances, so you're not just relying on one cloud environment or one cloud instance. So it's important to make sure you have those plans set in place, and you want a solution that can connect to that environment in the cloud, again, back out to all of your branch locations and such. When an organization is planning on making a move to, say, a new technology like SD-WAN, some things that the organization should plan for when it comes to preparing the forklift. One of the things that we commonly will discuss with clients is, okay, let's say today you're on an MPLS environment, and what's it going to look like during that migration phase? Depending, of course, on the size of the organization, you might be able to migrate in just a couple of days, or it might take a year, if you're talking several thousand sites. And so while you have the old network up and you are migrating site after site to the new network, you truly do have two networks that need to coexist in harmony side by side. And so any corporate resources that the organization needs to connect to that exist at, say, both the MPLS side of the network and the new SD-WAN side of the network, those all have to be able to get back to those servers. And so a couple of options you have would be make sure that your servers, if they're actual hardware, have multiple NICs so that it can talk to both networks at the same time. Or put a router in place at wherever your headquarters or data center is, wherever your servers are, that can talk to both networks. But that's going to be key, that the client needs to be able to have all of their resources talk to both networks, because there is going to be some overlap during that migration phase. At the branch locations, it's kind of nice because normally if you have MPLS circuits, those are going to be there and working. new circuits come in, your broadband circuits for example, and we can get the SD-WAN set up on that new side, test to make sure it's working. And then the day of the migration, it's just a few minutes while you unplug from the old network router, plug into the new SD-WAN box, and test for connectivity. And you still have the old circuit sitting there on the old router, so if anything was to negatively happen after the site has been put on the SD-WAN, you can real easily revert and go back to the old circuit, and that site could still be on MPLS for a while. That's how we work it when we're doing this type of migration at MegaPath, to minimize any outage and any massive disruption. Let's move on to the next portion of it here. So let's think about downtime, and why is redundancy so key, right? So if you think about a very traditional uptime service level agreement and how many hours there are in the year and what that uptime means, it means that you're basically looking at theoretically a day of downtime, almost 8 hours of downtime each year. And not including brownouts. And by brownouts we mean the circuit is not hard down, it's just not performing optimally, right? You have packet loss or jitter or latency or maybe massive fluctuation of bandwidth. So brownout's certainly a problem, but also just what is an actual hard down cost? And we would say that, sorry, I meant to actually put it on here. So we would say that for like a retail business, that your cost to the organization is about $2.5 million if every site has a 1 day of downtime. So very, very pricey. For most organizations of any size, it's going to be less costly to have a second circuit than it is to suffer through outages. Now, some benefits of moving forward, you think of technology, it's always trying to do more, do quicker, do it faster. You definitely have that with the new SD-WAN, software-defined wide area networking. So the idea here is that you're able to use commodity broadband circuits, very high bandwidth circuits, much lower cost than say T1s or Ethernet. So you're much faster, much less costly money. And these types of circuits also install very quickly. So whereas a traditional, say, MPLS environment might take 6 months to install or even longer, with SD-WAN it can be time of the circuit to get installed and then just a few days after that. So super, super quick. And all of your moves, adds, and changes also become much easier to handle because there's not really a bureaucracy. You can either do changes in a portal, depending on the carrier, or work with the carrier support team, like here at MegaPath, and make the changes for you. Here at MegaPath as a managed service provider, we kind of take that load off of customers' IT environments, and we handle all of the software updates, firmware updates, looking for any issues that we can fix for you. So it's all about high application performance. Especially as you move to cloud, as people move to voice over IP, many organizations are putting in cloud-type cameras for security or just to monitor what's happening in the organization. And so you, of course, want to make sure for the client that their applications are working very, very well. But of course, they don't want to sacrifice any security as well. In fact, if anything, security needs to be beefed up from what they've been doing. If you're an organization that is, say, Target size, Equifax size, they've got the resources to handle when they get hacked. But a small mom and pop shop, statistics indicate that typically a mom and pop shop would just go out of business within a year if they ever get hacked. So that's why security is really key. Part of when you're rolling out an SD-WAN solution, you don't want to sacrifice that. Here's some visibility of what you get. This is showing actually both one circuit and two circuits. I'll walk you through this. So this is actually coming from the SD-WAN Enterprise solution that MegaPath uses. So the bottom right corner, performance optimized over a single circuit, this is where if you look at just one location, one site, that's the bottom very colorful red and yellow line that's labeled 2.9. This is saying, okay, this circuit is having some pretty major issues. I would suspect that you've got latency, jitter, probably even some packet loss. And so if you just had the circuit and didn't have any SD-WAN Enterprise, the user experience, they would rate it like a 2.9 out of 10. But through the technology that's built into SD-WAN Enterprise, it actually works to fix all of those items, with the exception of the little gray bars are a complete outage, because obviously in this case it's only one circuit. The user experience is actually almost perfect at 9.64. So the users would say, hey, generally things are working pretty well. Now, again, if you've only got one circuit and that circuit just goes down completely, there's no backup. So that's why you would still get an outage there. But hence why you really, really want to have at least two circuits. And you'll see here we've got one that's an MPLS circuit, one that's a cable circuit. Those are the two at the bottom side. And the MPLS circuit's working a little bit better, although it has had a complete outage kind of there in the middle. The cable circuit, it's just all sorts of not working well, a 2.35 score out of 10. But let's take a look at the after effect, the very, very top bar. That's our quality of experience bar, and it would say, okay, out of 10, this is working at a 9.68. So it's almost perfection. It's got some, one spot in the middle that it still had to work hard to overcome challenges, but overall users would be pretty darn happy at this site. And notice that when the one circuit had a problem and it went down completely, the business was still up and working because that second circuit was there. They did not have a complete outage. So with the SD-WAN certainly is capable of using whatever circuits are available. MPLS is one of them, and I'll talk more about that in just a second. But some other capabilities that the SD-WAN Enterprise is providing for you is it's looking at everything at the packet level, making real-time routing decisions. So it's choosing, as you see there in the middle, the dynamic multipath optimization. It's choosing which path is going to perform best for the application, whether that be voice or video or another application the client has deemed critical. And it forms a tunnel between the site and the gateway or data center on the far end. And that's what this optimization is talking about. So all the data going across this tunnel that's formed across these circuits are having all this technology working to fix issues. So everything from errors and jitter, failover, brownouts. That way you get high quality application performance. Here's an example of what a video would look like. A single circuit with and without SD-WAN Enterprise. So 2% packet loss on this T1. On the left-hand side, you see it's just packet loss, just a straight circuit. This would be a video call that you would not want to have, or this would be a phone call that you would not want to have, versus SD-WAN Enterprise, even on a single link, 2% packet loss. This is certainly a call or a video that you would be just fine being a part of because the performance is minimally impacted, even though you have pretty high packet loss on it. Let's take a look at some use cases now. So organizations are certainly wanting to reduce complexity as they bring on more sites with oftentimes reduced IT staff. You want to be able to just go with as cookie cutter approach as possible. Of course, customers are always going to say, make things work perfect, lower my bandwidth costs, minimize any bottlenecks for the business. And you've got the problem that traditional architectures like MPLS, are not natively connected to Azure and AWS and such. And so how do you connect to those very easily? Well, that kind of takes us to, okay, what do you do with MPLS? And we are seeing a few different scenarios. Certainly it's kind of the buzz of things lately. As people try to get their hands around, do we keep MPLS? Do we dump it? Well, you're going to see kind of all kinds with customers. So certainly you've got some organizations that are deep in contracts with, say, MPLS, so they're not able to get out of those anytime soon, but maybe they do realize that they want a second circuit. They don't want to be single-threaded at sites. You've got other organizations who maybe they've got staggered timing for contracts coming off on MPLS, and so some sites are on, some sites are off, but overall they are recognizing that they want to generally move to an MPLS environment. And so they're going to have a kind of a staggered rollout. And then you've got other organizations who are just ready to move me now, move it quick, make it all happen. And with MegaPath, you can accommodate all of that. So you've got the customers who want to keep MPLS as one of the links long term. You can absolutely pair up MPLS with another circuit. It could be T1, Ethernet, cable, fiber of some sort, even backup using wireless or Viasat, that's one of our options here, or satellite. So got lots of capabilities when it comes to whatever you want to do for circuits. So when we're looking at a couple of scenarios for the customer's studies, one example would be you've got a network that's been built very specifically for a certain amount of traffic, and the customer is recognizing that their unified communications is going to mean that they need more bandwidth than they've got today, but they don't want to just simply have bigger T1s or bigger Ethernet circuits. It's going to be way too expensive. And so they need more bandwidth to support voice and video, because usually unified communications has a video component as well. Another challenge you might experience would be when I fail over to a backup link, calls are dropping, and they don't want that to happen. They want to ensure that they have a seamless failover. That is possible to do. And also, when you're using the commodity broadband, you want to ensure still the best possible voice and other application performance. So some challenges you oftentimes will deal with, and fortunately there is a way forward. Some other things to think about with this, so you've got internet links for backup, and these days even for the primary connection, make those work well. Make sure that you've sized everything appropriately for software as a service, as well as applications that are hosted or servers that are hosted now out in the cloud. And this is a common challenge, remote locations that have very, very limited options for circuits. So you might need to use wireless as the primary connection, or maybe even satellite, or maybe you have to do that T1. So you've got different circuit types that you need to be able to use them all, and you can do that. Contrasting former technologies with more modern technologies, the SD-WAN, so you're able to move away from what was at one point the best into the new best option. Sorry about that. And so here you've got the ability to control bandwidth for applications or for groups. And you also, of course, want to be able to handle multiple circuits. And it says dual, but you actually can get anywhere from 2 to 6 depending on the hardware that's used. Load balancing, failover, and also say aggregation. One of our SD-WAN solutions will do load balancing, meaning some of the traffic flows will go over one circuit and some will go over the other, versus aggregation, which is put packets across all of the circuits all the time and let it do aggregation where you get almost the full bandwidth of all the circuits combined. And of course, the sense of failover is moving from one circuit over to another, and seamlessly oftentimes. And you can absolutely do that with SD-WAN. Taking a look at two of the case studies here. The first one, MCG Architecture. So this is an organization you see 5 offices across the U.S., 90-year-old company. So they've got some business or some offices that are quite old, others a little bit newer. They've got kind of different things going on everywhere. The offices were not connected in a cohesive manner. They've got multiple vendors for pretty much everything, and just really not a good situation. Not the best solution for them. So coming over to MegaPath, they're able to get internet service as the foundation, layer on SD-WAN. Ultimately, they were an MPLS shop for a while, but ultimately moving to SD-WAN, and then as an application, hosted voice right over the top. So then they had one platform for all of their voice services. Everybody, regardless of where they are in office or even working from home, has all the same feature set. Of course, they want to make sure that they're connected securely and make sure that they don't have any business continuity issues. And so SD-WAN is able to give them all of that. So ultimately, they're having better performance, higher bandwidth, moving away from any outages for their users. At the same time, really not adding any costs. You see, they've had both upgraded bandwidth and redundant circuits, and it didn't cost them more because they went from like Ethernet and T1 into things like cable and DSL and such. Also note that, and this is what we talked about a little bit earlier, migration did not take very much time because we set up the new while they still got the old, and then it's just a couple minutes to get them moved over. And in this case, the MPLS was actually plugged into the SD-WAN as a circuit, while the other circuit was plugged in as well. So they didn't have any outage, which was nice. As you see, their director of IT is quite happy to get everything in, and it's all seamless for the organization. Next case study is around data clean. So a little bit newer of an organization, also spread out across the US when it comes to offices, and then they have independent reps out in the field. So the usual one there, slow speeds, what's the problem? Is it this end or that end? A traditional phone service, so plain old telephone service, what that stands for. And they were a big company, wanted to look like a big company, but they didn't want to spend very much money for it, right? They want to be very efficient, very frugal with their dollars, which makes sense. We all want to do that. So first off, for voice, gives every location, again, the same high-quality features and capabilities, great sound, regardless of where they are. They can be working from home, they can be on the road, they can be on their mobile phone, or they can certainly be in one of the offices. It all works seamlessly. And they had an MPLS network. They were having both challenges around internet speeds, circuits being not bidirectional. That means you've got asynchronous download, upload speeds. Overall, just not what they needed. They needed more bandwidth. It's pretty common. So moved them, in this case, to fiber and Ethernet circuits so they have the higher upload speeds. Didn't take very long to install, just over a month for them. And then move it over to the SD-WAN seamlessly. And what that's done is you get whatever's going to act as the hub site. Oftentimes that's headquarters, maybe data center, and then just one after the other peel off all of the remaining sites. So ultimately they're rocking and rolling, and they don't have to think about internet anymore or voice capabilities. Turning to the two solutions that we've got, both of these, Pro and Enterprise, have a little bit different focus on what they're going to do, who they're for. But what's nice is both are, we aim to be pretty easy to do business with, right? Flexible, you can use whatever circuits you wish. MegaPath, of course, we'd love to do, but you can also provide your own. They are going to connect site to site via IPsec VPNs. So that's still your private networking. And with Pro, you also can bring in client users or client VPN capability as well. We mentioned this before. Pro looks at the sessions. Enterprise looks at the packets. So in a failover scenario, Pro needs to tear down all the sessions and move them over to the remaining circuit and then stand everything back up again. It takes about 30 to 60 seconds. Enterprise is going to make real-time packet decisions for routing and do instant or real-time failover. Also, because Enterprise is creating a tunnel from the site to gateway or data center on the other end, it's able to do all that conditioning or optimization across the tunnel and make sure that both directions, everything is constantly watched and monitored and seamlessly moved between circuits, as well as there's technology built in to fix jitter, latency, fluctuating bandwidth, packet loss, so that you have the best possible performance. So when you're thinking of which client needs what, we tend to find that Pro is used for maybe a smaller organization or distributed enterprise. Restaurant and retail, they really love the frugalness of the Pro, and they tend to tell us that they don't really need real-time failover. If a call drops during a failover sequence, it's not great, but it's not the end of the world. Whereas other organizations, maybe big office buildings, contact centers, anyone who has applications where they say it is absolutely critical that you not have any fail or downtime during that failover sequence, they're going to want Enterprise. Or anybody who needs the best possible performance over some circuits that maybe they know aren't always optimal, that's where Enterprise comes in for you. We try to wrap it all up as far as being a differentiator with great dedicated install team, great dedicated support as well, all based right here in the US. And it is also, I think this is a very cool thing, that MegaPath Red is an industry first, and I think we're the only ones in the industry still doing it, that if you combine a MegaPath Ethernet or T1 circuit and a second circuit of whatever, we call that MegaPath Red, and we provide a 100% uptime SLA when you're using the SD-WAN Enterprise solution. So in overview, get more, do it faster, cost less, and that's SD-WAN. So let's turn now to some questions in our last couple of minutes. So again, in the chat window, if you have any questions, come in. And one of them is, how did you come up with a $2.5 million downtime cost? That was actually pulled from, and I don't have the slide in front of me that has the actual magazine, but there is an industry source that we pulled that from. So this is a larger organization, with several sites, of course. And just basically, what's the cost that they say, per hour, add up, basically 9 hours, multiply that by the size of the organization, that's what you come up with. What other questions do you have around MegaPath SD-WAN or anything we've talked about here, using MPLS, cloud versus prem servers, forklifting? Question is, will it be shared? So it is recorded, and it's going to be found out in the partner catalog, partner toolkit, or toolkit, I should say. So that'll be out on our website. Either your channel manager can get to that, or if you look in the partner emails that go out, the newsletters, the link should be in there too. Great, a couple more questions. Thanks so much. Let me take a look at these here. So first one, what type of customer web portal do you offer for the IT-WAN manager to view the service, make changes? So for both SD-WAN Pro and SD-WAN Enterprise, there is a dashboard that we provide, a single pane of glass style, that allows anyone who has been given rights to it, and everywhere from the partner to any of the IT team, and they are able to drill into any of the sites and look at the performance as far as the circuit goes, as well as all the clients and all the applications. And we call that the monitor access on the SD-WAN Pro side of it. So it's good for troubleshooting, see how things are going. And then on the SD-WAN Enterprise side, they actually have read capability. Sorry, not read write, read capability. And so they can actually see how configurations of things are done. But you also get to drill down and see exactly how the circuits are performing, see all of the sources and destinations, so all of the devices that are on the customer location, as well as what are all the sites that they're going to, and you're seeing all the applications that are in use. So it's great visibility, great troubleshooting if need be, and both for us and for the customer. Now, because we were operating these under managed service provider scenario, when they need changes like firewall rules or content filtering rules, the client or the partner would come to MegaPath support to make that change. And it's possible to get in touch with us in two ways. Through the admin portal, you can create a ticket, or you can go, if you need something done like right now, you can just call into support, and they'll make the change in real time too. And the question next was remote server an issue with the architecture firm? Kenneth, actually give me a call sometime and we'll take a look. I can check for you. Sorry, I'm not sure on that particular one. So the next one is, for businesses with a single internet feed, how does the SD-WAN appliance improve the overall connection? So specifically with SD-WAN Enterprise, and I'm going to actually back up some slides here so that you can see this one. Get it to show it for you here. Oh, sorry, 1 second. Technical challenge with it. All right, we will just make it go one way or another. So my apologies as I move us around here. There we go. That's the slide I needed. So look at the bottom corner. So the technology that's built in to improve performance across the multiple circuits is still there even for a single circuit. So real-time failover, of course, is not going to be a function, but forward error correction, jitter buffer, those are all still happening. And so packet loss is improved, jitter is improved, latency is improved, and traffic shaping, because it's seeing the actual bandwidth up and down for the circuit as well, is all constantly monitored and checked. And so the different applications are shaped against that, regardless of what the actual bandwidth is versus optimal. So that's why even on a single circuit, you still get application performance improvements versus not having that. All right, next question here. Does it show the status of the WAN? And, so this is actually a good point to touch on. So all of the SD-WAN solutions come with what's referred to as proactive monitoring. So this is up-down status monitoring. And this means that if a circuit does go hard down, it will automatically notify the MegaPath NOC, open up a ticket, and we'll send out an email to the client, whatever email address they tell us, to notify them that here's the ticket number, we're already aware of this, we're already working on it. So that is a component of it. At the same time, yes, if someone wanted to go into the dashboard, you could go in and look at any of your circuits, any of your sites, and you would see the status, the actual performance in real time of those circuits. So if one was down, you see that in the dashboard. If they're both working optimally, you see that in the dashboard too. And so again, if there is truly a hard down, we actually proactively know about it and would alert you and start working to fix it. Next question is support hours, 24/7, 365, all from our centers here in the U.S. Herndon, Virginia, and Seattle, Washington are the primary two NOCs. And they support all of our product lines. All right, any final questions here? Thank you, everyone, for listening and joining. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer. Give it just a few more seconds here. All right, no more questions at this time. So thank you, everyone, for joining. And if you have any other questions or thoughts, feel free to reach out to me, Michael Farthing at megapath.com. So thank you, everyone. Have a fantastic day.